sharpest brains in the country on a topic that is most elusive, if I may so say so. Let me start by giving you two illustrations of what is the situation. When I got married, I was a little apprehensive because I didn't know what the future is going to bring to me. So some of the elders, one of them included a former vice president of the country, gave me an advice and said, well, be happy, keep your wife happy. Now, friends, that doesn't carry me any further. What is the meaning of saying keep your partner happy? How do you keep them happy? So these are some of the things that nobody ever told me, and I had to painfully discover it for myself over the last 54 years. Not that I have succeeded even today. At least if you check with my wife, that's what she will say. Now, the interesting thing about the data privacy law is that, and of course the latest version is the DPDP in 2023, it is completely agnostic to the question of cybersecurity. It only says, hey, make sure that the data integrity is maintained, that there is no unauthorized leakage of data, there is no unauthorized access to data. If you ask them and say, how do I do it? That's your problem. I am not concerned with that. I only tell you that this is the law. That is precisely what the DPDP Act is. It gives you a whole lot of exercises to be done of what you should do and what you should not do. But it will never tell you how you will do it or how you cannot do it. That is precisely what the role of the CISOs is. Now, how does the CISO go about it? This act has been hanging balance, as far as I know, for the last 5-6 years. Several versions have come up, debated, rejected, and finally with great, I don't know whether it was enthusiasm or reluctance, but at least Parliament passed it in 2023, and that too in a half-baked form, because the act is not really implementable unless all the rules are in place. And till today, I don't think the rules have come into place, although we have been promised that the rules will be operative from this month, next month, or so on. So this is like the wedding date. It will be somewhere in March, but I don't know what date of March, so I keep looking for the month of March very anxiously. Now, in such a circumstance, what is the CISO supposed to do? Interesting thing is, data privacy is not something to which CISO is a stranger. They have been told. It is like, a boy and a girl are dating. You also know your friends, you go for dates frequently. But then tell them that you're going to get married on such and such a date. Both of them get into the wedding blues. They don't know what is to be done, what are the various things to be completed before the wedding date. So CISOs must be in the same role today. All these days, they were given a job. What is your job? My job is to ensure that there is security of the data of the company with which I am the CISO. But today, there is a law which comes and it stares you in the face and says, hey, have you done this? Are you ready for this? Then everybody gets into a funk. So it is at this stage that Chanteri asked me and said, can you talk something about how these CISOs can be prepared? So I had to put myself in the role of a priest at the wedding who has to give advice on how and what steps need to be taken in a wedding for the boy and the girl. Now, the digital personal data protection significantly impacts Chief Information Security Officers, that is CISOs, requiring them to rethink of their roles in their organizations, what the data that they collect, process, store, and secure from customers, vendors, employees, and partners. The implications for CISOs are the following. One is the expanded scope of personal data. Now, personal data has been broadened, the concept has been broadened by the DPDP Act, and the scope requires today CISOs to comply with stricter consent, purpose limitation, time limitation, data minimization, which are all requirements of different types of personal data, which were not really within the ambit of a CISO's role earlier. Then the next is data breach reporting. Now, data breach reporting was a routine function that a CISO carried out. Maybe if he was very alert, he would carry out very alertly. And if he was somewhat lazy like me, he would take his time but make a report on the data breach. Now, CISOs would have to establish protocols for rapid breach detection, investigation, and report them to the Data Protection Authority within 72 years of the breach happening. Another role that has been thrust upon you. Then the next is consent management. It's a subject with which the CISO says, I'm not concerned with that. But today, the Act requires you to look into it carefully. Consent management and the data subject rights. CISOs today need to implement tools and processes to support user access, correction, data portability, and deletion requests. That is their job now. Then the next is appointment of data protection officers. This is something that nobody had even thought of. Organizations need to appoint a DPO to oversee data security, monitoring of data, data audits, and compliance, which requires CISO to collaborate with the DPO and carry on this work from day to day. Penalties for non-compliance is something that has suddenly come up. CISOs must ensure their organizations comply with the DPDP Act to avoid significant penalties, which may run up to about 4% of the worldwide turnover or some specified limit which is prescribed in the Act. Now, how does one prepare to face these challenges of the DPDP Act? Conduct a gap analysis to understand the organization's current cybersecurity, application security, and data protection posture. Where do we stand? Are there gaps which need to be filled as of today if we are to face the future of the Act that brings forth the future for us? Review the data collection, processing, and storage practices to minimize data collection and ensure adequate security controls. Next, develop a transparent privacy policies and establish consent management processes. These are some processes which have to be afresh implemented, because this is not something to which the companies were accustomed earlier, nor were the CISOs called upon to look into these aspects at all. Then implement automated tools for consent management, data discovery and classification, as well as data masking and DPIA automation. These are all some of the things which are required to be carried out in order to ensure that the new roles which the CCIs are required to discharge are carefully analyzed and implemented. Now, nobody told me what are the steps for a happy marriage, but I've sort of reduced them as 7 steps. You know, you have this Sat Phere, the Sat Phere in the marriage. The Sat Phere that you have to do if you think you are going to be successful as a CISO. Phera number 1, priority of communication and collaboration. Things have to be done instantaneously today. You cannot say that I will do it over the weekend or after I've had my Saturday and Sunday off, nothing of the sort. Information security teams have been traditionally accustomed to put together information about security in driblets and in slow motion. That will no longer do. Now, under the new legislation, You can no longer tolerate the status quo. If you want to get prepared to meet the DPDP Act compliance, you must encourage your team to communicate instantaneously and often. You will also need to work with other business heads to make interdisciplinary collaboration an urgent affair. This also applies to the newly created privacy functions which the Act mandates. Then FARA number 2. Automate as if there is no tomorrow. Everything has to be done as of today. You will not get through by merely hiring more persons. You can't say, I'm going to the market and hire some more experts. Shantari will recommend some other experts who will be employed to solve my problems. No, there is no time for all that. There aren't enough smart people in this space, and you simply cannot hire enough of them in good time and fast enough. You need smart tools that automate essential tasks, and then you need your smart people to act and communicate insights from these tools. That is an alert to rely on AI more and more. I remember I was an independent director in a company, the NSDL, which deals with millions of pieces of data. So every week we used to have a regular meeting of the directors concerned, and I was one of the small group. And the report that was made by the security officer was that every day there would be at least 1,500 to 2,000 attempts to hack into the data sets. Some of them by state actors, some of them by non-state actors. Please note that state actors are smart enough across the board. From wherever they are, they want to see what you are carrying in your vault, data vault. And of course, non-state actors, just for the heck of it, they want to break into your vault and see what you are containing, if they can make use of that. Then number 3 step, or the third round, budget to meet all imaginable and unimaginable contingencies. Now, budgeting is always done by the finance department, and whether it's the government or private concern, the finance people are always the stingiest people. They are not willing to spend on what is absolutely necessary, but they are willing to spend on absolutely unnecessary things. This is your opportunity as a CISO to get a reasonable budget for your automation tools and the people required. Do not accept the lethargic chalta hai attitude of the finance department or the budgetary group from your budgeters. Budget to face the challenges thrown out by the new law. Don't miss the bus and regret later. Proper budgeting and seeking the required tools and personnel helps you to control implementation of your plans for the future. Step number 4, review third-party risk with a hawk's eye. Irrespective of whether your company builds all your technology in-house or outsources development, you can no longer get away with annual questionnaires or black box penetration tests that you leave to your vendors to activate periodically. If you are capturing data, then the law now needs you to take responsibility for protection of the data at all times and in all situations, irrespective of who builds your software. Third-party risk has been a topical and an application security for some time. If you were not focusing on it until now, it is time to wake up and understand the urgency of the situation and act now as if there is no tomorrow. Step number 5, make privacy training dynamic and regular. There are things like fire drills. Everybody says, अरे क्या आग लगी है, क्या आग नहीं लगी है ना, तो ठीक है, भोंगा बजते रहेगा, बजने दो ना, क्या फर्क पड़ता है. So people don't take seriously all these issues, whether those fire protection instruments are updated, whether the water supply is updated. Nobody really bothers. There is a saying in Sanskrit, Sandipte bhavanetu kupakhananam pratyudyama kidrishaha. So if your house is on fire, you don't then think of drilling a well in order to get water to douse the fire. You have to either have a water tank. You have a water tank, make sure that there is enough water pressure. Even if there is water pressure, make sure that the pipes are intact, the nozzles are intact, and at the drop of a hat, you are able to switch on the hose. That is precisely what is required in firefighting. The analogy is apt. It is exactly what is required to be done in data protection also. Privacy and security training was treated hitherto as an unavoidable nuisance that had to be tolerated as a formality and as a tick box exercise. Only the truly privacy-conscious companies in sensitive industries required more regular training and retraining. Now, every company has to ensure that the people are regularly trained and assessed of their privacy-related responsibilities. Right from the front of house, customer service teams, to senior executives, to your most technical developers and engineers. They have to be trained, they have to be immersed in this culture of data privacy. That is called privacy by design. And it is intended to generate, propagate, and maintain the culture of privacy. Step number 6, review and optimize regularly. There is no set and forget in cybersecurity. This is not news to you, but remember, cybersecurity cannot run on autopilot. A plane may run on autopilot. The pilot may say, let me take half an hour's rest, setting it on autopilot. Cybersecurity is on real time, every moment of your job. You must set up mechanisms to understand your security posture on a real-time basis and then act on the insights. Your company's newly minted DPO and data protection team or the consultants are your gurus. They will guide you as to the new laws that are enforced through the DPDP Act. Heed their advice at every step and seek their guidance for foreseeable or unforeseeable contingency preparations. Last and final, but not the last one, probably there are others. I have just looked at 7 as more than enough for a wedding preparation. Security, even if it is automated, is not a system that can run on autopilot, as I said earlier. Real-time communication, automation, training, optimization is necessary to build and sustain the culture of privacy in your organization. This is important because there is no panacea or Ramban tool that can solve the problems that may arise later on and that may assure you that all the capabilities that you may need in the rapidly dynamic situation that you can't manage otherwise. The situations would have to be anticipated and preparation must be made to deal with it from moment to moment. Think of yourselves as soldiers on guard duty at the border. Like true soldiers, you do the drill every day of the week, every week of the month, and every month of the year, all 365 and quarter days of the year. You don't ask this question and say, "Arey, left, right, karke kya milne wala hai? There is no enemy at the border." No, unless you do the left, right drill today, you will not be ready to meet them when they are from Pakistan or China or Afghanistan or wherever else. Think of yourselves as soldiers on guard duty at the border. Like true soldiers, you do the drill all around the year. Privacy culture is as difficult to achieve as the discipline that a soldier requires unless he has been doing it throughout the year. Like a firefighter or a true soldier, you must be prepared from this moment for what the situation may bring ultimately. Now, what the situation may bring is written in the law. The law says, if you don't do this particularly, what is the consequence to you? What is the consequence to the others who are going to be hurt? Now, friends, as CISOs, it is your job to ensure that such things don't happen, whether it is the analogy of a soldier, analogy of a firefighter, analogy of a medical team, which is always available in the emergency department. It's your job to be ready on your feet. And now that the act is there, look at the act. What is it that he wants you to do? It only says, prevent these kind of breaches. Now, in order to prevent a breach, what mechanism do I bring? The law is very agnostic about it. The law doesn't tell you what to do. It's your job as CISOs to discover the latest available technical methodologies to deal with the situation and deal with it as an emergency situation. Thank you. These are all the 7 feras that I have told you. If you take the 7 feras, you'll be truly wedded to the data privacy, and then you will have no problem. And the Vice President's advice to me would have been translated to you. Of course, I didn't tell you what he really told me. He came to me at the reading reception, and in my ear he whispered and said, "Beta, I'm telling you something secret. Remember, during your married life, always follow what your wife says. That is the secret to happiness. Now, always follow what the data privacy law says. That is the secret to your success as CISOs." Thank you very much.